Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossroads with Cam. Today we have a special guest, Will. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Carter? What's up, Cam? How are you, dog? It's your boy, Wolfman. I'm ready to get into it.
Let's go. This is going to be an awesome conversation. And by the way, episode 10 of the podcast. Can we clap for that?
All right.
Episode 10. For the 10th episode, we got 3 people this time. So it's like more conversation. It's real.
Yeah.
It's more fun because we can all have a perspective in a conversation. So what's up, man? How you been?
I've been good, man. I recently told y'all that I got accepted into 2 grad school programs, both from USF and Wake Forest. And I actually was at Wake. I'm going to not dive into that right now. But I ultimately chose to go to that school, Wake Forest, for the grad school biotech program, and I'm going to be going there in fall 2024. Awesome. And yeah, I'm just grinding on my senior thesis right now. And
so, what made you choose biotech?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
So
wait, did we say biotech?
Biotechnology is the program.
That's his major. Okay.
Yeah, translational biotech is the program I'm going to for Wake Forest
for
in
masters?
fall 2024. It's master's. Yep.
Okay.
So for me personally, ever since I've grown up, I've moved around a lot in school. And when I was in high school, I remember talking to my college counselor, and he was like, "Where do you want to go to school?" At the time, it was ironic because I said Duke, which is the rival of Wake Forest. And I always was so attached to the idea of nanotechnology and biotechnology growing up, and I was such a biology nerd and such a basically just science nerd in general.
Which, by the way, I do want to get into your background too, since we're talking about that too. So,
all right. Well, before that, one question: what's your favorite, as a biology enthusiast? What is your favorite organelle of the cell?
Probably the mitochondria.
That's the powerhouse, man. We all know that from. If I learned one thing from school, I learned that the mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell.
It is, man.
I mean, come on.
It provides all the energy.
There we go. Hey, all right. So yeah, let's go further back though. With your faith background, I don't know exactly. We want to save it for the actual podcast to get into it. But where do you have a faith, and what does that look like from you?
Okay, so
how you grew up. Basically.
Growing up, I was born in Santa Barbara, California, and I was a lot of moving schools, a lot of public schools and private schools, moved around a lot. So for me, it was a lot of instability. So it was a lot of exposure to so many different beliefs that I was initially, not that I want to say now that I am, but at least initially growing up, I was an atheist and a non-believer because my mom was religious, but my dad wasn't really at all.
Okay, so it's kind of split.
So our family was upheld by Christian morals, but it was from a spirituality standpoint. It wasn't from a standpoint of we went to church every Sunday or we're the Saturday night church kind of people. We were very just about science and our academics and just grinding and ever since basically school started for me in middle school, I've always been about the mindset of just grinding academically. So I think for me growing up, I was in California, then Pennsylvania, then California, then to Texas.
Wow. So you moved back to California after?
I was in Los Angeles the first time around, and then the second time around after I was in Texas, I was in San Francisco. Okay. And so I was in public schools for high school and elementary, and then in middle school, I was in a Catholic school called Chaminade. And then in high school, and a little bit in middle school, actually, my 6th grade year, I was in a school called All Saints. Shout out All Saints in Tyler, Texas, a very cool school. They're Episcopalian, and they were very open-minded, though. So it's kind of interesting because the Catholic school wasn't super open-minded. They had this assemblies and the sense of family, but they were still kind of enforcing that you hear the devotion of God every morning in the morning.
More strict, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit more strict because they would require you to listen to that every morning when you're in class and the morning announcements that they do. Okay.
So that was a part of the
right,
whole...
yeah. All Saints did that too, but they were more open-minded about courses. when I was at Chaminade, they literally required us to take a course. We had to learn and read about the Bible.
Okay.
While when I was at the Episcopalian school, that wasn't the case. Okay. There wasn't a course that required you. They recommended it as an option, but it wasn't required.
Yeah, because I never went to a private school, Christian school, or anything like that. Me and him both did public school, so it's a lot different even from there. And I did online for high school actually, because we moved, and I was in the middle of the move, I just decided to do online. So we were never in that culture, so it's cool to see what that kind of looked like. What was the other one like compared to that one?
So it's interesting because when I was growing up in the Chaminade school, the Catholic school, I actually loved it, and I loved the teachers I was with. There was this one teacher named Mr. Appleblossom, and he was
wait.
Hold,
pause. His name was Mr. Appleblossom.
Yeah.
Is that his last name?
No, yes, that's his last name.
That's a cool last name.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I usually play him when I play Candyland.
I wish that was my last name.
Oh man.
Holy cow.
Yeah, man. I we all got good last names still, but yeah, it's funny. When I first heard that, I was like, man, like it's crazy too because he was like the teacher I would go to every single day because you know how like you have like a study hall like in school sometimes. So like every single day I would like go to his class usually like at the end of the day. So. And I remember when I left that school in Chaminade before I went to Texas, I was still this was like still in California. They threw me a party because me and my sister were both at Chaminade and we were going to that Episcopalian school. Wow. So it was
that's cool.
It's very interesting. They're both pretty similar to each other, but also very different. All Saints is very open-minded, while the Catholic school was still open-minded and all about family, but they also wanted you to really learn about the Bible and enforce it and learn about your family tree and all of that. And
so were you growing up Catholic then or what was that?
No, it's weird. That's the thing. That's why I say growing up I was like very religious neutral and very atheist because I was a Christian with Christian morals, but I grew up in a Catholic school briefly and then I grew up in an Episcopalian school for like the rest of my high school.
Wow.
Like when I graduated in 2019, I graduated from that Episcopalian school called All Saints.
So you really had 3 different things going on when you were
growing up. Had 6 different schools.
6 schools?
Like,
dang.
Some of them were public schools and some of them were private schools. So I had that blend where y'all were public. But
we just had like one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, but like growing up now, especially once I got to that school, the Wake Forest that I was just talking about, that's when I really started to change my tone about God and like my beliefs on spirituality and Christian morals, because I've always been about Christian morals growing up, but like the thing was I was confused with why people called it like God sometimes. Like I don't understand like the terminology to it. You know how like when you break a word down in Latin, like I was curious
Yahweh?
like kind of like right, exactly, like
those kind of words.
I understood it from like a religious standpoint of why people call it God, God, but I didn't understand it from like a technicality standpoint of like when you're breaking down a word, like when people pray to God, I have mixed feelings about it because I think God is way more than just a therapist. I think God is like, I sometimes refer to it as like a spiritual cosmic being. At least when I was younger, I did refer to it as that because I looked at it as like a divine energy that is like the universe and the cosmos, where it's like some people think it's the Big Bang Theory, some people think it's God created the world and all that.
Theories and stuff.
I'm a mix. Like I believe in the idea that God was divine energy and created the universe. But I think my problems with it is when people are like praying, it should be more than just like praying with your insecurities. Like it should be.
We can any religion can listen to that right there.
Right.
I mean, we should all think of God as more than just a therapist. He's the creator of the world.
Right. Exactly.
In my view, it's like
I think it's cool that you think that. Because like when I was growing up and I would take those science classes, like before we learned about evolution, the biology teacher would always be like, well, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or anything or make one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think
I remember those days in middle school too.
Something really cool that I think you'll like is that he took a bunch of Legos and he threw them up and they made a big mess.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but then after that he said, you see that things don't just bang and they don't just fall together. Things fall apart.
Right.
For things to come together, someone has to put them together.
True.
And that's how they like taught the way that it could be the Big Bang.
Right.
Someone did that, which would be God.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. You can't even if the Big Bang was true, something had to cause that.
Right.
So I mean that's where we get into all these different scientific beliefs and stuff.
Yeah.
And since you're in a biology major, did you ever think about that side of it? Since you always
like I've always leaned towards the scientific lens at first, but then I started getting perspectives from other people from different sides of the coin of like understanding it. And I think now what it is that science and religion work together.
That's what I'm saying. I think science actually proves God more than disproves. Because there's nothing in the world that can disprove God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's not like solid proof, because then there would be no reason for faith, right?
Right.
If there was just like God's right there, we wouldn't need faith.
Mm-hmm.
But science, like one thing I really love, and that I talked about before, I think, is if you ever look at tree branches, there are like all these tree branches, but if you look at the lungs, like an X-ray of the lungs, it looks exactly like the tree branches. There's a lot of things that are like nature and is in us too. So I feel like God there had to be a designer to all this.
That's a fact, man. That's pure
facts.
What's
really cool is like there's so many more things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just one little example. Like another one is the gravity thing, and exactly where the sun is and where we are.
Mm-hmm.
If it was anywhere different, we would either be too hot, too cold. Like it's exactly where it has to be.
One fact that I always bring up, like a lot, is that you know how water, like when you take chemistry, is a bent molecule.
Right.
If it was a straight linear molecule, we wouldn't be able to live.
Yeah, I actually remember watching one of y'all's earlier podcasts, and
he said that
you're talking about that, and then you're also talking about how like God is in free forms, and I really agree with how like water is in free forms, God is in free forms.
That's actually the reason I wear number 3.
Oh really?
Is it actually?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Growing up, I think I wore the number 33 a lot. That was my favorite basketball number growing up.
Like three.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man.
Well,
but
something else. Like you learn like evolution, and you can see how people have changed over time. But what our teacher would always say is like, well, maybe God used a tool called evolution.
Right.
Yeah.
To really like grow.
True.
So like, here's my stance on that. I think God kind of utilizes science to make the universe, but I think it's more like a mutual collaboration where science and religion work together. But I think the part that I struggle with some parts or some stories in the Bible is like, for me, I don't believe full on the idea of creationism. I do believe that science and religion work together, but the idea that there is no evolution is the part that I disagree about. Otherwise than that, I do agree that God in the form of divine energy and like cosmic energy created this universe, but it's hard for me to ignore the aspect of evolution. And like on your tree of life point, I look at things like spirituality a lot. So like in Loki, did you see the season 2 of Loki?
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
I love that ending because
it's crazy.
Loki literally pulls all the time streams and all the time bands to make the new beginning of time and make the Norse. It's literally a Norse mythology thing. The tree of life, and that's what I love about it. And like to your point about how like the lungs with the tree branches and like God is an artist and a sculptor. I often say God is an artist and we are each individual specks, unique, equal but not the same specks of the universe.
Yeah.
And the universe is God's canvas. God paints the narrative for us. And I think your point, y'all talk a lot about predestination versus free will.
Yeah,
and
a little bit.
I think God does, pave the way for us as an end game. Like he paves that pathway for us to get to our end game and our ultimate journey in life. But I think the great part about it is that God is understanding about our prayers, that if we don't want to go down that pathway, God is willing to adapt.
And here's the best thing about God is, and this is why, like, even if there's people that don't believe, like, this is an awesome thing about God is he doesn't force anyone to believe anything.
Right.
It's you have the choice to talk to him or not, or to follow his will for your life or not. There's people that don't, and there's people that do, and God gives us the choice. And I just think it's the best thing about it is it's love. That's what love is, in my opinion. From the Bible, it's like from the very beginning, he gave us the choice to follow him or to not. From Adam and Eve in the garden, like he said, there's a tree here. You shouldn't eat this fruit. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Mm-hmm. And so he said, you can eat from it, but I'm encouraging you not to, because you're going to get all these insecurities and things from knowing what I know.
Right.
And so he gave them the choice. And of course we decided to sin. That's where sin started. But
something really funny and kind of cool is that how we were talking about religion and like history and the science of it.
Yeah.
Well, what is the fruit in that story?
An apple.
And you know what? This physiological
apple blossom.
No.
Is that what you're gonna say?
I was gonna say Adam's apple.
Oh,
that would make
that's
more
kind of
sense.
funny. Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Appleboss has something else to say. So do you think he left an impact on you?
Oh, for sure, because like there's a lot of people who I just respect on what they mean symbolically and what they represent as a good Christian figure.
I can see that in you.
So-
I guess the apple blossom doesn't fall from far from the tree.
Well, also, okay, okay, Carter. That's your average Joe for Carter.
It's like the pun, the good pun joke.
It wouldn't be Carter without a pun. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is real. This is Carter's personality shining on the podcast.
Hey, it's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah, but okay, to get back a little bit, I want to challenge you a little bit. So when you pray, if you pray, what do you pray to? If you think it's like
So
a mix of like energy, do you think?
yeah, I
like-
think it's a mix of like divine energy. And you talked about how like there's verbal prayer, but there's also like mental,
Yeah.
communicable prayer for that way of just like mentally having your wavelength link up that way with the like the energy of God kind of. So I'm a huge believer in manifestation. I believe that it's a mixed combination of God helping you work through it for your faith, and then also you putting in the work.
That's not a bad take either. I
like,
agree.
Because like y'all said before, faith without work
is dead.
is dead.
Right.
So like, I think a lot of times I always say manifestation is real AF, which
Yeah.
But my point is that you can will it to existence on your own, but you also still need the assistance of God.
Will it?
Yeah.
I know that's what Carter was thinking.
Oh man, yeah, no, but like my point is that especially once I got into those grad school programs, I was like a huge believer in manifestation, and I've always been a huge believer in God, like through manifestation, because I think if you put in the work, there's really nothing you know.
I think it's
like-
the one
the-
verse you would know.
You reap what you sow. The Bible says.
Exactly.
Which
You would know what the verse is. It says like, pray it and then go about it as if you already have it.
Right.
yeah, pray as if you already
Yeah,
have gotten
which one is that?
prayer answered.
Yeah.
I forgot where it is,
That
but
is exactly what you said.
that's
Yeah.
it. Also, in a way, the Bible doesn't say manifestation is not true because in that it's just a different look at it. I think
Right,
like perspective
yeah.
is everything with all this stuff. It's
Right. Yeah.
It's like what lens are you looking through? Rose colored. No, but I just think you reap what you sow.
Mm-hmm.
Basic Bible verse that is like really popular. It's like you put in the work and you will get the results.
Exactly.
So I mean, I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
that's 100% true.
The only time success comes before work is in a dictionary.
Yeah, that's facts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good quote.
For me, I was looking at this one like quote or video that like someone you all probably familiar, but like the rapper J. Cole, he like had a line where he's like,
J. Cole is fire, by the way.
yeah, I love his music. He was talking about the idea that in order for you to manifest things in life or achieve your dreams in life, you gotta like reach that apex of your mind and then reach a little bit past that apex of your mind to think that you can achieve past what you truly think is possible. Because if you do that, then people might see you as delusional, but that's only because you haven't gotten to that point of success yet. If you're determined and you reach that point of success, then you'll be seen as a genius.
Yeah, everyone thinks you're crazy until you get a success out of it,
Exactly.
right?
So-
Mr. Beast even said that. Actually.
Yeah, I saw him say that too, and that's basically what J. Cole was saying by like saying get to that point of apex in your mind and then be delusional enough to reach past that. But like, they just said it in different ways. But yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah,
So-
I think the power of the mind is crazy. Like my belief, I think God made way more than we utilize. Like our mind, we have a lot of power that He gave, and some we just don't use it.
Right.
And we haven't even tapped into it in our lifetime. I don't even know if we will, but
Have you ever seen the movie Lucy?
Oh, I have
Yeah.
heard of that one. Isn't that the one with Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah,
right?
she uses all.
you
the
have to
mind.
keep talking.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a good one, man. Yeah.
All right, so let's get a little bit back. I like this conversation. It's fun.
It's
It's
awesome.
good to have like someone else's perspective to talk about because a lot of people might be watching with something in between or whatever.
Yeah.
So I like to have these conversations. The thing about Christianity is Jesus. Like that's the biggest thing, right? So I'm just wondering, what's your take? Like, what do you think about Jesus? Who do you think he is, and like that stuff?
So I'm not gonna lie, I do know some verses in the Bible. There are a lot of stories that I'm not super familiar with in the Bible. So I know like the Jesus symbolism, but what I said before and what Carter was like referring to about like how God is in 3 different forms, just like water is in 3 different forms. That is like my main perspective of when I think of Jesus usually.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm trying to think of how else to phrase it, because I see him as like a figure, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I just don't know quite enough about the true context of Jesus.
I'll give a little bit of context to the Bible. So the whole Old Testament is, from the beginning, sin. Like we are, of the evilness of ourselves, right? Like we just know we're not perfect, and we have never been. We have free will, and we make mistakes. But it all points to us needing a savior because we're not holy, but God is. And there's like separation. Yeah. God is kind of a jealous God in the Old Testament because we're like doing evil things. There's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, I think it's called, is a city that completely burned because there was no righteous people in it. Yeah. So the whole Old Testament is pointing to our need to a savior, and the New Testament is that savior coming, which God loved us and he had mercy on us, so he sent Jesus. Yeah. And he was the human form of God, which he's the Son of God. There's a lot of debate between is Jesus God or not. Right. So that's
the thing you were saying, and like that you don't really.
Which he is, by the way.
What?
I was just saying he is God in the human flesh.
It's funny, like you said, that you don't really understand all of it and you can't comprehend exactly what God is. I think no one really can, because he's like above, like you can't even understand.
Yeah, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts.
And the reason that we don't know is because that's what faith is for. So we shouldn't know everything. So.
Yeah, that's true too. We talked about that a little bit last time. It's like if we had all the answers, we wouldn't need the faith that God calls for.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is no love without the faith, right? Because if you know everything, then like if we knew God was there would be no reason to question it and believe in something. But since we don't know for sure, I think that's purposely designed like that.
Exactly.
For us to say, like, I love you, God, and I'm having faith that you're there. Yeah. Instead of like, no.
I think you had a really good point about, like, we talked about a couple of times already, but like about good versus evil, and like how no one ever is like fully purely good, at least for earthly beings. Yeah. And no one is ever fully purely evil.
From the time we're kids.
I think everyone deals with that balance and that offset and balance and that struggle between your morals of good and evil and all that. And like the Christian morals is usually what helps me with that, which helps me develop my moral compass of maintaining good versus evil. Speaking of like the evolution of music and the evolution of Christian music, one of my favorite Christian rappers, and I really like to call him a Christian artist because he's so much more than just a stereotypical rapper. His name's NF.
NF.
That's his artist name, at least.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's really cool to me, and I love his music so much because he has a really good line in one of his songs, Remember This, and he says, I look at the world from a different angle. People change. Even Satan used to be an angel. Ooh. And I love that line.
That's true.
Because it makes you rewire your thinking on the perception of the stereotypical or traditional good versus bad. Yeah. And it makes you, like in this modern era, things have changed so drastically and evolved so drastically that it's like, sure, still keeping the foundation of God is good, obviously, and like bad is bad or Satan is bad. But like,
and God is a just God too. But like, he knows what's right and wrong. He's a fair God.
Right. I'm just saying though, but like in this modern era though, with like social media and tech and the way things are of cancel culture and the way things have changed over time, that it's good to rewire your thinking on the stereotypical good versus bad, because it shows you that people can change for the better or for the worse.
Right, yeah. Like, it goes both ways.
It can go both ways, like you're saying. So.
Wow, yeah, that's good.
That's one of my favorite lines, man.
Yeah, I love that song. NF is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to, when you were talking, I was thinking, like even from the time we're kids, we know when something's good or bad. Like it's just something that's in us. And so another reason I believe in something that points it is morals. We have morals from the time we have a moral compass. Yeah. So how did that, if God wasn't real, how would we know what's right and wrong?
I went to Lake Ranch Baptist Church one time, and the whole message was about where did that right and wrong come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an interesting point, because there's like a moral compass for like good versus evil, but then there's also like a moral compass versus right versus wrong, and it's like, well, what dictates that?
We know
wrong?
That.
Yeah. So
when we're like a little kid, stealing is wrong. We know that we should, like, even if we do something bad, like we understand that there's right and wrong. There's being good and being bad.
There's also a lot
you
of gray area in it.
Yeah, but you ever see like the YouTube videos where they put a cookie in front of a kid and they tell him don't eat it, and they walk away out of the room, and then the kid's like,
yeah, exactly.
He takes it. So I mean, yeah, it goes both ways with our morals.
Well, don't look at me. You see?
Why you say that?
Isn't that crazy?
I guess it's just like
it makes
reverse psychology almost.
Yeah.
It's like reverse.
It's crazy.
It is like reverse psychology. I guess another topic I really wanted to talk about is we were talking about earlier about like prayers of insecurity.
Yeah.
And like I often, not that I always deal with it, and there are tons of people who deal with it way worse, like medical depression and like isolation and struggles, and like when they're praying, they pray sometimes because they're either in a state of insecurity or depression. For me, there's one. If I was to give advice on that of how to handle depression,
it's a big thing right now.
Handle and get your mental health right. Yeah, exactly. For me to handle that depression, especially like you're saying after all that isolation from COVID, there's this one quote I love by James Broyhill, and I remember looking at it actually when I was at Wake Forest, because they had like a glass plaque of the quote.
Yeah.
And the quote is, "God forges us on an anvil of adversity for a purpose known only to Him. That is the way He prepares us for life."
Whoa.
So I love that line because that helps you
crazy.
understand that like God wants you to get to your end game. And sometimes you may turn down that pathway He set for you. He'll adapt and create a new pathway for you to get to that end game. Like I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yes, there's always another opportunity.
Right.
Even if you go down the wrong path, there's going to be another opportunity in front of you somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just up to us to take it, right?
Exactly.
Like I think you told me that one time. It's like if you don't get it then, or if something doesn't go right then, you're going to have another opportunity at some point. It's just how willing are you to go through with it.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever noticed how your jaw will click sometimes? I'm not kidding.
Really, Carter?
No, I'm not kidding. Sometimes your jaw will click.
Wait, are you switching it? Because I just want to say one more thing.
It's the same thing. And sometimes it'll go away.
Oh, really? I guess it does naturally go away and you don't realize it.
Like, I guess
I'm in a class called like TMJ.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, I'm not kidding. And I thought it was interesting that the guy taught us that you'll have a lot of stress and a lot of like trauma go on in your jaw. That's why it pops.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But the only joint in the body that can adapt, and then through that trauma, it'll readjust itself and change direction in a way to make you not pop and not be as have as much trauma. So kind of in a way, that's what God does with us. He uses this trauma to make us see, there's another way.
Right. True. So when I mentioned that quote, the anvil of adversity, that was me trying to say, hey, if you're feeling too much depression and overwhelming pressure, just know it'll be okay. Like you'll get through it. And like that, like you're saying, things will naturally get better, even if it feels like you're in the worst of times or in the storm. And
suffering produces endurance. We just talked about that last episode, and it's like every time I go through something, there's something in the background that's working in a way for me from God.
You don't go through anything. You grow through everything.
That's fair, yeah. I agree with that.
I also think growth is up to us, though. Like, there's a point where you get in the suffering, you get in the depression, you get in the isolation, you get in the problem, and you have to look at the bright side out and not the endless darkness behind you, right? I don't know.
Oh, I always, on both of y'all's point about growing through the process.
Yeah.
Like, I think that one thing to always keep in mind is that life's greatest hack is just try and be yourself, be your authentic self. If you do that and you triumph and you keep determination, that is how you're going to grow through it. And that is the key to winning life, is to grow through it and just try and be yourself.
It's inspirational right there. All right, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I like to be philosophic, man.
I like
to preach, man. You know.
Yeah. I was gonna talk about how God's plan is just so much bigger than what we can even think of for our life. Like when we trust Him, when we were talking about that, that's what I was gonna say. But that kind of just like concludes all that part of the conversation. It's like there's bigger plans for you. You just gotta trust God with it.
Yeah.
But What do you have any questions or things you wrote down? I don't want to take up the whole. I don't want to force anything. If you have something else you want to say,
I talked about a lot of what I wanted to say. there was one thing. You usually talk about like the problem with Gen Z and social media. I think the biggest problem with that generation.
Yeah, let's go with that. I ask everyone that comes on, what's the biggest issue with Gen Z?
So for me, the biggest problem with that generation is like they have so many identity issues, and it's usually because they fall in a trap of like a victim's mentality. They fall in this trap of they've been privileged, and all they've been exposed to is the era of technology. They haven't been exposed to anything before that. So, and I always look at it as like Gen Z, like A and Gen Z B kind of, because I was on the side of things where it wasn't all cancel culture and toxicity and social media, and you weren't like always on your phone and dissolved by this culture of social media.
That's all it is.
Like when I was growing up, like it wasn't like this. Like it's been so much more cancel culture than it's ever been. It's been so much more like all just negativity, and I think you're not supposed to be drowned in activity like that. Like you're supposed to find light in the dark and like embrace the worst of times and embrace every situation to the fullest, no matter what.
So what do you think we can do to fix it and make it less of a problem for us? If it is our phones, if it is social media, what's the solution, you think? Because especially with the identity stuff you're talking about, I think like a big thing is finding our identity in Christ, because like before I found Jesus, before I had that relationship with God, I didn't have a foundation of who I was. It's like you can be yourself and go a million different ways, but you need some foundation behind you or you're going to fall. Like it says in the Bible in Matthew, it says a wise man builds his house on the rock because it's a solid foundation, and the unwise man builds it on the sand. And that's the one that blows, the house falls down because of
about that stable foundation.
It is, yeah. So what do you think is the solution to the social media problem that Gen Z is having?
So I think it's not really a phone thing. I think it's more about
an us thing,
like a little bit of an us thing. But I also think that for the parents raising their kids in like this Gen Z B era or this Gen Z era, they gotta make it where they filter certain stuff on their phone, and like because if they're gonna give them a phone, fine. Like at some point they're gonna have to deal with this current era and like this just the way it is now. But I think that filtering it isn't bad, but at the same time they're gonna be exposed to like the raw social media aspect anyways. So I think personally though, at least starting out, they gotta filter what they see on social media a little bit. Not necessarily completely limit everything, but at least somewhat restrict and filter what they see, especially if they're like on the younger side, obviously. And
because now more than ever, there's so many. You can see anything online. Like
exactly.
Even if you're a kid who gets a phone, everything's everywhere. Yeah. So that's true. Parents are a big part of it, and I think the family unit is super important. Like having a father and a mother that can, one, teach you and raise you right, but also, like what you're saying, protect you in a way without controlling you. There's a line. Right.
There definitely is a balance to it and a line to it. So like that's just my perspective on it when it comes to like social media. Just make sure you don't fall in the trap of a victim's mentality and like get dissolved by the cancel culture in social media. And then also become like a specialist in something in your life, because if you have something that you are set on, then it makes it easier to not get consumed by all the distractions of social media and all the like the white noise of social media. Because if you have something that you love and with passion and you're set on it, then that's another like thing to do outside your time on social media.
Then you have a goal.
Really pursue and like your goal.
Yeah, goals are super important. Having something. Someone told me about success is find what you love and be a specialist. Like know as much as you can about the hardest thing in the thing you love, and that's how you'll be successful.
Yeah. I know I talked about how like God is an artist and like the whole free will versus predestination thing, but I posted something last night that on my IG actually because I wanted
shout out
but I wanted to really get this message across. I think it's important that when you're talking about free will versus predestination, like I said, God will adapt for you if you turn down that opportunity. He'll create more opportunities. But it's not just like God's an artist. I think God is also a director in the sense that the reason why you're going through this pressure is because the people that get the hardest roles are usually for the best individuals or the best actors, which I'm not trying to say there's a superiority thing. Like I don't know what like determines who's a better actor than the other. I'm not trying to say any of that. I'm just saying that if you're feeling the pressure, understand that that is because the role that you're placed in requires that, and you want to strive at that role.
Like the hardest battles are meant for the best. The hardest battles are given to the strongest warriors, right?
Exactly. I think the strongest warriors are the best actors, however you want to phrase it. The strongest individuals are given the hardest roles because they were built for that process. They were right. And if you want greatness, like if you want to be successful and you want to be above average, you're gonna have to go through above average and harder things, like harder than average things. If you want to be better, like I think that's with everything, in every path of life. If you want to be the best, you're gonna have to go through things that the average person doesn't go through. Yeah. It's an interesting balance because, like, sure, you have to like have the belief in the manifested mindset of like you can reach past that apex point in your mind and like get to that. So it is like you're like supposedly delusional, even though really once you reach that point of success, it's genius. Like I said before. Hey, people think I'm delusional for my faith, but like yeah, that's the thing. I think what really matters is how much you go all into it. Like, right, exactly. If I 100% believe something, I don't care what anyone says. You know, that's how the mindset we have to have. That's a good point. I'm like usually not fazed by what other people think of me because at the end of the day, I'm all about my grind in life. And like, if you don't dodge that grind in life, I think that's the key to win is like be you. Don't dodge that grind. Pursue on your journey, and you'll come out eventually. When it comes to like the pressure aspect that we all go through in our journey of life, I always say that the brightest diamonds. You know, the most pressure forms the strongest and the brightest diamonds. That's true. And that's good. Diamonds form under pressure. You said it before. Like I love that you mentioned that because quote. I use that all the time. That's my mindset most of the time is that remember you'll get through it. Just keep on going. Yeah. And like, never stop. Car, like you're in dental school, right? So I'm sure to be in that position, you've had to go through some things that are harder than other people. Like you have to study a lot more than someone who's not gonna pursue a education after college, right? Yeah, like you are having to put in more work and going through things because you want to be better, the best, right? Yeah. Don't you think that's true? Yeah, exactly. Like he said it best. Like if life is a movie, the major roles are going to the best actors. Yeah. And like. You know, God gives his hardest battles to his type of soldiers. Yeah. And you never know, like, what you're going to get in life, but that's why you find out as you go through life. Yeah. And so another thing is when I pray for what I want in life, when I want something bad and I want to be someone and do something, there's going to be suffering that has to come so that I can be the person that I need to be. Because every time I go through something, the character is being developed, right? Yeah. And so I need to go through something. I don't want to, but I think diamonds like form under pressure, and those moments of pressure are going to be the storms in our life that make us who we want to be. Like if you don't go through it, how are you going to be the person that you need to be to get there, right? Yeah. I think people just are afraid, and it's like. I always have, there's a really good line, a pretty typical line, but I also love this line. I always say, look at fear one of two ways. And you got two options basically. Either face everything and rise, or fear everything and run. You get that, Cam? So. Do you know what he did? You know the acronym for fear? The typical meaning of there's an acronym that I always live by. Face everything. So there's two options of fear. You can either face everything and rise, or fear everything and run. Wow. You get that? Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. When you say those two things, it's like there's the good side of fear and the bad side of fear. If you say face everything and rise, that is saying FEAR. Wow. That's fear. So there's two roads basically. It's two options. Either be afraid and deal and like get consumed by the fear and don't rise up to it, or take it on full head of steam and push through it. That's awesome. That's a good quote. Holy cow. I love that line. Cool thing. Yeah. Yeah. So in your journey in life, what's been like the biggest struggle for you, and like has your faith come in to help, or like what have you done to overcome it? I mentioned before how I moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been through a lot of different schools. For me, it always felt like when I was moving, it was finally when I was like making friends. So I still have a couple of friends that I still talk to, on socials and all that. But it was tough for me to keep like a long connection, like a long relationship. Like there's like some friends that I've known in the past that I don't talk to anymore, and they'll be like, oh, a good friendship is supposed to last for 5 to 10 years. I'm like, well, that's not always the case. There's plenty of scenarios where I know that people are just
come either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Right?
Yeah,
there's certain friends for certain seasons.
Exactly.
And sometimes we outgrow them, and sometimes they outgrow us. And
like y'all, I don't think that's gonna be the case. Like even though I will be somewhere else next year in the fall, and it'll be harder for me to see you as often, I'll still be able to, for like a holiday event.
Yeah, you have friends where like you won't see them for a long time, but no matter how much time goes by, when you see them again, it's the same.
Right, you'll still reminisce with them, and you'll still
shout out Evan.
Exactly. Like
I have a friend that had moved to New York, but
really?
Even if I don't see him for 3 years, he comes back and it's the same exact way as it was.
I don't really think we're friends. I think it's like a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Like
friends are born for a time of adversity, wait.
Friends come and go, but brotherhood lasts forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is basically Proverbs 17:17.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Like for me, I've always been socially, like at least growing up in middle school and high school, it was tough for me, like being in those circles. And that's why now I always keep a tight inner circle, because I know in high school there's always the stereotypical circles, and everyone categorizes into their own groups and stuff. And not that it's a bad thing, but I just wish that sometimes people would be more inclusive. And maybe that's a thing of when you're younger, you don't quite understand the difference in popularity. As you get older, doesn't really mean much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. For me personally, I've always wanted to keep bonds, and there's 3 friends from high school that I consider, like you were saying, brothers of mine. That I'll always keep in the back of my mind. I'll always talk to and say, hey, how's your life update? Like what's going on and stuff. And I hope that becomes the case with y'all, because I've hung out with y'all. I've been with y'all for such a long time now that it feels like this is something that is meant to last for hopefully forever.
I think God sends certain people into our lives for a reason.
Yeah, like you said, when you're young, you have a bunch of friends, all groups, and you're all like it's like
cliques.
It's like flimsy.
Yeah.
But
flaky.
As you get older, your circle gets smaller, but it gets stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. It's a Bible verse, and it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I reference the Bible a lot, but it's because a lot of the stuff in it, I read and I get random things in my head, even if I don't like remember it on a random day. It's like when I have conversations, I think of things, and they're so true. Because if you look, this is 3 people right now. Mm-hmm. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. But if you have a bunch of people, it's easier to drift away, right? It's easier to not keep a close circle. But I think that you become your 5 closest friends is something I've said before.
Yeah,
I think it's so important to have those really core group of people that not only care about you, like not only like to hang out with you, but want the best for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that, the core of 3 strands thing, because there's like this one video I love posting on my social sometimes, and it's like, forget about 20 people. I don't need a circle of 20 people.
Right.
Just give me 3 people and we can take over the country.
There you go.
Give me 3 people. That's all I need.
It's true.
Give me a tight inner circle and we can do anything.
It's all you need, I think.
Yeah.
I think the smaller, the better it is with friends. It really is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, I agree with what Carter was saying about how when I first met y'all, even though I met Carter a little bit earlier before you, that game against Ringland really did change everything.
It really did, man. I had 27 points in the first quarter. I'm just going to say that right now.
That was the dream team.
That was my best basketball game ever.
Nuts.
27 points in the first quarter.
After I assembled that team, the Avengers, I almost dropped everything to go be like a general manager of the basketball team.
For real?
Wasn't that awesome, though? Even though they got mad that I was too. They were like, they can't get the star player on the other team. He's not in college.
I told you can only have college players.
And I was younger.
He's 15. And he said, well, you can't play. I was like,
That was
what?
crazy. And also the coach,
man.
their coach got in the game too.
That was the hilarious
retired
part.
NBA player.
And they still couldn't win. They still couldn't win.
Bro, that was the funniest part to me is that like it was the second quarter and they were already down so bad and they brought that dude in like their Ringling coaching assistant who's this retired NBA player and like or just retired G League player or something.
We should have a 30 for 30 by then.
That would be hilarious.
What?
That team, like the ESPN 30 for 30.
Oh,
They do like the drama videos. Like,
we're gonna look back on that and be like, that was the greatest.
Yeah.
I'll
Honestly,
never forget that game. That was
I
fun.
wish I played basketball more often now, but I still think I can hoop. Obviously, that's not a problem with me. I always, as long as I have my shot,
Shoot
and I
or
stay
shoot,
in
man.
shape,
That's what Sabrina
right.
said last night.
That's
she said,
facts.
shoot or shoot.
Facts.
Yeah, I think while we're on that topic, I think it's just something encouragement to like to just do things, and like, even if you're like kind of scared or you don't really want to do it, we get the opportunity to live this life, so you should just go do things. Because that day that you started playing basketball, and
it led to this conversation right here.
To that game. You probably didn't think we would meet. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just want to play basketball, and that little thing just to have fun.
And you needed more people, so you got me involved.
Yeah.
Something new led to this, and
it's crazy.
Take basketball out of it. Now we have a great brotherhood.
It really is crazy.
Which, by the way, all that leads to this very moment where we're having a conversation. Like everything's intentional.
It's nuts.
And I think God designed every single part of it. Like there's a reason why we're sitting here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
it's
I know.
If you look at it, think about on the starting 5 basketball court, 5 people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Strong.
It's a strong core of people, a strong circle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even NFL football, they have a bunch of people, but not all of them play at the same time. You know.
Yeah.
Same thing.
No, I agree with Carter though. We really were like the Avengers. Zach from that Ringland team was still pissed too about this day, man.
Hey, I like that John Morant guy. What was his name?
Khalil?
Yeah.
Antoine
and Khalil, but that was an awesome team.
Yeah, no, Antoine.
Kyle was on the team too.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Bro, and the crazy part is that me and Kyle really didn't have to do a crazy lot. Kyle was doing his thing offensively, but he didn't have to because we were already up by like so much points. I was like, well, the game's over. So
that's because I had like 8 threes, by the way.
That was nuts. Like that first quarter was honestly nuts.
Best time of my life. I loved it.
Wait, you said you finished the game with 27?
No, the first quarter.
The first quarter was like...
I posted it on Instagram.
It was like 7 threes, right?
I don't know. I had 27 points, but it was probably like 7 threes and a few layups.
Yeah.
But I posted it. That was one of the best moments of my life. I have a list of accomplishments in my notes. By the way, do that, guys. Make a list of your accomplishments.
Make a list of accomplishments.
Not for like an ego thing, but so you realize that you're worth something. Like it's not that you've done things.
It gives you something to strive for.
Right. So I put that on my list. That's one of my things. Like that was awesome.
I wish we could do basketball again, and maybe we will in the future for fun, like just us casually shooting around. But I doubt that like we'll have something like that again, like Raymond versus New College. But not that.
That's why we gotta just enjoy every moment.
But it's a thing of you get to cherish every moment you have with people.
Yeah, it's a memory now.
But I will say that to the people currently at the New College basketball team, the actual team they have now, we would bust them. We would destroy them.
I hope they're watching.
Like, there's only 1 or 2 guys on that team that are good. One's like 6'10", and the other dude's like a crazy athletic point guard. But otherwise than that, most of the guys on that team, if we had that 5 we were just talking about with me, Kyle, Khalil, and Antoine, and then all us 3, like, we would destroy them. And especially if I was, I still am in shape, but I do wish that I played a little basketball a little bit more often because I've been so focused on academics recently that
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to get your mind off things and also just to stay active. Like we can always play basketball. It's awesome. So I talked about accomplishments. Do you have any goals, like big long-term goals, short-term goals that you've been thinking about? I know because you're going to the Masters, so that's one thing.
That's definitely my biggest thing because I have it. That starts for me in fall 2024, and then it's done in spring 2026. It's a 2-year program, so it's.
So what is your end goal career?
It's a good question because
I don't know mine either.
So I'm hoping to achieve something along the lines of like nanotechnology with a mix of biochem because it's a biomedical program, and I'm not pre-med track, but I'm like a blend of, I guess, a little bit of biomedical and biochemical with like the goal of trying to use regeneration because a lot of the courses I'm taking there will be involved with cellular growth and cellular regeneration. So, yeah, there's a science.
Go into a lot of things.
There's a lot of different options for me in terms of career track. I really don't know what my official job will be. I know I'll have an internship likely there in those 2 years, and
just enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm just so happy to be back at that home. Like I know that this has been home for me the last couple of years, but when I left Wake Forest the first time around, it was a tough adapting to a completely different culture and environmental change. Like in terms of like Wake Forest versus New College, it's completely night and day. It's so different.
Do you have any advice on moving? Because you've moved a lot in your life, even from college, from schools. Like, how'd you get through all that, those moves? And
it's tough. Like for me now, it's not too bad because it's on my own agency.
Right.
Like,
now you're
I'm choosing to take this pathway. But like a lot of times when I moved is because my dad like got a new job as like the treasurer or like CEO of the treasury department.
So your family moved.
So a lot of times when my dad's job changed, I would move, my family would move. But like because my dad's job is now mobile, it's not a problem. He can be in Texas or in Florida and I can just chill here and I can be in Carolina or Florida. You
probably had some fear, right, when you moved? Like,
oh, for sure. Because when I moved from San Fran back to Texas, it was tears of joy. But then when I moved from Texas to San Fran before that, it was complete frustration. It was complete like, why are we doing this? Like just because it felt like every time we moved, it was just simply because my dad got a new job. And it was like, not that I love my dad. Like I wouldn't change the way things have happened for me in the world. I wouldn't have written the script any better, but things like that where you're dealing with so many changes and adapting with COVID and like moves, it is tough. But
the only thing constant is change.
That's facts. Like I think personally you just gotta understand that you are your own individual, and as long as you are mentally stable and your health is intact and you have that determination, ultimately you will get to a point in your life where you eventually have complete agency and you'll have. So I think like when you're younger, it's just a thing of staying with your core of your family and understanding that change happens.
Yeah.
And so like when you're younger, you're right. Like it's hard for you to deal with change because you wish you can change the outcome and take your own agency on that.
And in the moment, you're probably thinking it's like the worst thing ever.
Right, exactly.
But it's kind of like what me and him talked about last time is change, like a caterpillar has to change, like the whole process of metamorphosis is what makes it into the butterfly.
Yeah.
So like there's this whole process of change that happens. And I think like even moving could be an example of something that someone might be going through watching this that thinks like they're scared because they have no new friends now and it's like all this stuff going on. And I just want to say like everything happens for a reason. I genuinely believe that in my heart. Like I think God has a plan and a purpose for every single thing and a season for everything. And those seasons, even of change, are leading to something better that makes you who you are. Like, I think that's part of your story now.
I tell my parents all the time that everything happens for a reason. Yeah. And it is even when I was younger, when I was still like struggling with certain concepts in religion. Even like ever since like my childhood, I've always been like telling my parents like everything happens for a reason. Yeah. And like, so I always think like when like, your metamorphosis idea, your spiritual metamorphosis idea is really good because I always love to say that thoughts morph into ideas, and ideas act as catalysts for change. Yep. And or operate as catalysts for change. And I think that's really powerful because it shows that even when you're struggling, if you are just determined and you keep your thoughts positive and you embrace life to the fullest, you'll still grow through it like we've been talking about.
Basically, there is a reason for the season, even if it doesn't seem like it in the moment. Yeah. It's hard to see the picture when you're inside the frame.
That's a good point. You mentioned that before.
Yeah, I always bring that up because I've been through a lot of things where I didn't even see what was happening until after. Because in retrospect, hindsight is 20/20, right? So now we can see like perfectly behind us. Yeah. And God is not even in the picture. He can see the whole thing. So even though in the moment, if you might be in a storm right now, like anything in life, God sees the whole thing even after what's happening. We can't see it yet.
That's a good point.
We can't see what's going to happen. So that's where the fear comes in. It's like we don't know the uncertainty of the future, basically.
I think it's good to embrace uncertainty. I think that's what it's all about.
It's life.
Taking risk. If you're risk averse, then you're not going to get to that next level you want to get to. I'm not trying to say it's not possible. Sure, there are other ways of getting to an opportunity that you want. And like it's not just one dimensional or one tone or one set. But like for me, I use that point that you mentioned about the picture frame. I like that analogy because I use the whole God is an artist who paints the narrative for us on a canvas, and we're the specks of paint on that canvas. So it kind of goes hand in hand with what you talk about with free will versus predestination, and what you talk about how we don't know the story. Mm-hmm. God knows the story. I think that's powerful because, like you were talking about the frame, God can see the canvas, but we can't because we're living out the beautiful story on.
And that's where the faith comes in.
Yeah, that's facts.
That's where the faith comes in. It's not knowing. Faith is believing without knowing, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah,
we don't know what's gonna happen.
I think the two biggest things about faith is believing without knowing, and being able to like stay determined and reach that point of like delusion to where you can manifest stuff with the help of God. And then the second thing is faith is without works is dead. Yep. So that's the two biggest things with faith for me, personally.
Yeah, I think that the times of adversity is what tests our faith. Yeah. And untested faith shrinks.
That's interesting.
I heard that today actually. I was listening to a seminar of Jim Rohn, I think, or someone like that, and he said untested faith it shrinks.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, like nothing's gonna happen if you don't go through anything.
Or
like grow, right? Yeah. So this whole thing we're talking about, it all links together.
It really does. It's like a story that just links together as a web. Or
which I love that too, because the more I live my life, the more I see the pieces that just come together. Like things are there for a reason. Everything's just coming together.
It's kind of like the thing we were talking about with the Legos and like the piece of the puzzle. It's like at first it's all chaos, but in reality it's spontaneity. It's good chaos, because then even though you're going through uncertainty, if you have faith, you'll grow through it. Yep. So,
and the cool thing is God is right now moving pieces around our life, even if we don't like those. The moving stuff, like that's even a piece to you getting here. I think
that's true.
I think everything happens.
And even though it will suck in the initial months not being able to see y'all, I think I should hopefully be able to see y'all during like Christmas or something, or during the holidays once I'm back from
we gotta make something happen.
It's one of those things where change sucks sometimes, but it's also a blessing in disguise. It's good. So I think it's
inevitable and it's needed. Change is always needed, and you never know who else you might impact by where you go. Right? Yeah. There's always something else to accomplish and get done. So I'm glad we got to sit down and do this, though. Do you have anything else to say before we end?
I guess the only thing I wanted to chime in on was I do have 2 Bible verses I love.
Oh, yeah. So what's your favorite Bible verse? Or verses? Because that's also a question I ask.
Those are 2 in particular that I love.
I almost forgot to ask that. Thank you.
One is James 3:13, and then the other one is Romans 12:4. Okay. Romans 12:4, I think that's like the one.
I love Romans.
I think the reason why I love Romans 12:4 so much is because my basketball coach, shout out Coach Francis, he was at All Saints Episcopal School when I was in Texas at the time. He used this every day before we had basketball practice, he would say this Bible verse to us. And he would say, "For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others."
There you go.
And I love that line because it shows what a team is all about. It shows that each person on that team has a unique role and is a unique body part that helps with the overall system of the team and the human being. Yeah. So it's like, it's more than just like, oh, hey, you're the spot-up shooter. Oh, hey, you're the guy on defense that just does that. It's like everyone has a unique role,
and they were born for a specific purpose.
Yeah,
everyone's unique. That's what I love is we are all different. DNA, everyone's DNA is different. We are unique, and that's awesome. I love that one.
Okay, and then here's the other one I really wanted to say just real quick. Yeah. It's James 3:13, and it talks about like the 2 different kinds of wisdom. There's like the wisdom that's like unheavenly and like earthly or like unearthly, whatever, and it's like the demonic wisdom. And then there's the wisdom I personally resonate with, and I even had a shirt at it when I was at a youth group one time. what is the line? It says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom." Wow. And I love that line because it's not talking about wisdom from like, oh, I'm smart, I'm wise, I'm intelligent. It's wisdom in terms of like pure wisdom through how you represent the daily actions in your life and what you do for other people. Because I'm super empathetic, so like I'm care more about other people, but I'm not fazed by what other people think of me. I just care for the well-being of other people so much. So that's why I see personally as like wisdom is the embodiment of wisdom truly is what you do for other people and not what you think of other people.
That's good.
So that's how I would.
That's James 3, you said?
James 3:13, and then the other one about the basketball analogy was Romans 12:4-5.
Those are awesome. Carter, anything else before we end?
Well, thanks, Will. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Pretty epic, yeah.
I just want to say, like, can I pray?
Yeah, absolutely.
For all of us? And everyone watching. So everyone watching, if you want to pray this with us. Father God, thank you for this conversation and just this friendship, this bond that you have, made happen through everything that's happened in our lives that got us to this moment. From moving around to playing basketball, all to having this conversation here. I just pray that you fill each of us with your wisdom, with the godly wisdom that only comes from you, Lord. And Jesus, just open our hearts to accept you and learn more about you and just get in the word and just to trust you, God. Help us to trust you in every season of our life, even on the ones that don't make sense, even when you are the only one who sees what's going on. I pray all this, and I just pray for Will as he goes into his master's program, Lord. Just move in his life and keep him motivated and confident in everything he's going through. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Yes, sir, dog. Witnessing for the world.
Peace.